car behind me is a March 721, but was bought by a German team called Eifelland, and they tried to develop their own car. So they called it an Eifelland E21, but essentially it was a March 721. So made in the UK. A German designer, Luigi Colani, came up with a crazy wing design, which was actually quite innovative, but back in those days they didn't have the materials to make it. I think the car was 100 kilos overweight, literally, so it was a disaster. It went back to a more conventional look, but they came up, because of the original design, they came up with a central mirror, which is quite striking and quite unusual. They kept that on the car and really went back to a basic March setup. The team was not quick, and the driver was Rolf Stomlin. His best result was actually 10th place at Monaco and 10th at the British Grand Prix, and then the team ran out of money and the car, they had to sell it, and they went on to, it went back to a conventional March 721, and John Watson drove it 2 races at the end of that year, and after that it disappeared for many years until it arrived again in Historics. Hi, I'm Dave Shaw, fan of historic motorsport. Been an engineer all my life. Started racing when I was 20 years old, seriously, back in Formula Ford. Did several seasons, quite fast but quite erratic. Had to stop for a few years to save up some money again. Started sort of one-make championships in the 1990s, so did lots of one-make Renault Clios, Renault Spiders, National Saloon Cup. Then ran out of money again, had to stop again, and made the right choice to buy a historic Formula 3 car in 2012, which was Nelson Piquet's Rolt RT1, and really enjoyed driving it back to single-seaters. And from that, we had the luck to race at Monaco in the F3. I had an obsession with getting back to Monaco, and Monaco stopped the F3, so I had the luck to buy this car behind me in 2015 to continue racing in Monaco and other Formula One. The biggest problem with these older Formula One cars is getting comfortable, and it took us quite a while to sort of play around with the position of everything, but to drive it now, after several years of making it better, it's a fantastic car to drive. Initially the mirror was a distraction, but as soon as you start concentrating, it's not an issue. But the best thing with all these cars is the Cosworth DFV engine, which is just, the more you drive them, the more you enjoy them, and enjoy, you know, the sound and the intense sort of power band that engine gives you. When the car's well set up, it's great. I mean, this car, we've got the suspension set, so it's nice, fairly light on the steering. It's probably way quicker than it was in its day. You know, with better shock absorbers, better suspension. Engines are probably a little bit more powerful than they were. So it is a joy to drive. But it has taken us quite a few years to get it to that situation. It was way ahead of its time, but back before the days of wind tunnels, and they were just sticking a pin and guessing it, which I think. And there was just too much bodywork, too much overheating, and they didn't have the materials to make the bodywork light. So if you look at some of the old pictures, when it first came out, it was I would say, ahead of its time. But the guy Colani, who designed it, was designing furniture and kettles. He was a bit like a Philip Stark of his day. So it's fairly lively. I mean, these wings we've got here probably generate a few £100 of downforce, if that, so nothing compared to a modern car. But they definitely make a difference. It's the best. It really is the best. It's such a good circuit. Once you've got to get in the zone. You can't make any mistakes. I've got away with a few things when you brush the barrier and you might dent a wheel and stuff like that. But if you have anything serious or outbrake yourself, you know, that's it. Even if you go down the escape road, you're finished. But I first drove here in the Formula 3 cars, which were absolutely perfect for here. You know, smaller, nimble, not that much slower than the Formula 1. This is my 7th time here, so I know the track very well. You do need a good few laps to get to know it and get confident. But the hardest thing around here is just traffic, you know, because it's relatively narrow. You've got a lot of people out there. Some of them are not experienced around here, so they're just looking forward, not in their mirrors. I think the worst thing is, I mean, the circuits are generally a lot safer. So you've got runoff, but you've got no more protection back in these than they did in the day. The main difference is the fuel cells, because back in those days, when the early 70s, the fuel was in the aluminium monocoque. If you had an accident, there's a good chance you're going to have a fire. So that element of safety is a lot better. The biggest problem with these days with historic cars is bits falling off them. And if something falls off in front of you, you know, it's a bit of a lottery as to where it could go. So that's probably one of the biggest risks. The last time we were here, I qualified second and third. So I had a very optimistic view of the first corner, and it's only a literally 200-metre run to the first corner. So the key thing is just to get away cleanly off the line so that you don't have cars coming around you, and just be as peripherally as aware as possible, and also be thinking one step ahead of the game, because they have got a lot of room on the right to bail onto should somebody be on your left. So yeah, the relief when you get through the first corner is immense. Just coming out the chicane into back and then through the swimming pool area, and the chicane after the swimming pool is really tricky and really quick, a lot quicker than a lot of people think. So even though in my past I've gone off twice at back, I still like it. And that's, you get to back right, you flow into that very fast left right, and then the right left after that is incredibly quick, a lot quicker. A lot of people, you over slow the car down, and then you go, oh, I could have gone so much quicker, but you've just got to be careful, because the biggest mistake people make, they just clip the inside apex, and bangs the car wide, tips it into a spin, and then so you've got to drive precisely, and the main thing is to build. You've got to build a lap time and not try and go too early. That's my advice to myself. These cars are physical, but not particularly around Monaco, because Monaco you're in a corner for 2-3 seconds, then you've got to rest. The other thing with the old cars, you're sitting in quite a sort of squarish shape, and it's difficult to not be thrust around with the G-force, so you're bracing yourself quite a lot with your legs. So that's where energy can go, not just on the steering. The hairpin, no, you've just got to turn in, make sure you slow it down enough, because one thing you don't want to do at the hairpin is go wide on the way out. You're just wasting time. But the next two right-handers, Portier, you tip it into there, a little bit of throttle just to kick the back round, and then the one onto the seafront, again, yeah, you can rotate it with the throttle, but you don't want too much wheel spin, because that's a critical part of the course. And then the tough corner here is the tunnel, because in these old cars, it's not flat out. Maybe when the car's absolutely up to temperature it is, but only just. So, and then the same old problems with the tunnel. You've got to get your turning in point absolutely precise.